Uh, a very good evening to all learners. Uh, Today we are going to discuss. I will start with some presentation. Later on, we should have uh, a it should be followed by a discussion. And I hope most of you have joined in discussion session also, because only few 2-3 peoples are actually attending discussion. More learners also should join in this session, in the discussion. So today this will be the first session of block number 4, that is that have entirely focus on basic focus on agrobiodiversity. We know that we have learned some of the basic about the concept of ecology, ecosystem, natural resources, different form of natural resources, then the energy crisis, the basic issues of water crisis, and so on. And when we look into the ecological, geographical condition on one side, on the other side, this particularly this our socioeconomic condition. Agriculture is one of the important it's a profession. We can say it is a profession or sector that gives an economy. So, looking into from that perspective again, looking into the basic important role played by agriculture in maintaining the biodiversity, conservation of biodiversity, the uniqueness of our country, and it is very important to understand the fundamental of agrobiodiversity and its value. So that's why we have a special focus on agrobiodiversity in this particular block. And I'm sure most of you must have looked into the basic foundation or basic concept, which is already given in our study material about a basic concept of agrobiodiversity. What is the present scenario of biodiversity across the country, across the world, and what are the measures taken by different organizations, government of India, to conserve biodiversity. As we know, agrobiodiversity is declining in very fast rate, and but in the one side, it is the basic foundation of our food. Uh, and if you look anything, and then everything started from this agriculture. It may be, and you may have any citizen, maybe you may be in developed country or developing country, but our food is run, the plate is run by by agrobiodiversity. So in today's session, what we are going to discuss on this is how we have to understand this the concept of agrobiodiversity from ecological economic perspective. As I know, also you know that whenever we talk about the value of agrobiodiversity and general understanding of agrobiodiversity, we are looking into those variety and variability of food in your plants, right? On the other hand, when we talk about the economic value, means monetary value of your particular of this agrobiodiversity, we are looking into the monetary value, what you are getting out from the basic cereals, basic grams, means very basic crops. Uh, that what we're talking. That is what you see in your mandi, in your market. We have seen only the monetary value or economic value of the food biodiversity. Whether their understanding is our understanding of the value of agrobiodiversity is right or wrong. it is the right time to think upon. So sometimes whenever we are discussing about developing the impact of land use, land cover change during the last 2 3 decades, when we discuss about some issues, cross-cultural issues, especially in India, we were talking about Professor Swaminathan also talking about special agricultural zones. Why we are talking on that perspective? Why? And in this particular, if we look into that modern, the last 2 3 decades, we are very, looking towards the direction of different way of modern urban agriculture. And what is that value? And whether we will be able to get the value given by the agrobiodiversity that we are and following in the natural way, whether it is comparable or not, that you will be able to understand after completion of this session. And I'm sure a student of sustainability will be able to understand that cross-cutting issues of that's agriculture, agrobiodiversity, to understand from an holistic approach. Not as a, you may be, your background may be ecologist, your background may be agriculturist, your background may be agronomy, your background may be an economist. But when we are trying to understand any issues, especially in these issues of agrobiodiversity, we have to understand those values from an interdisciplinary or that particularly from that holistic approach. That's why it is the right time to understand as a layman. Okay, we know that most of the scientists, academic, they know this value, and they have calculated in different way. The ecological economic perspective of agrobiodiversity, its value, sometimes economic value into ecological scale, ecological value in economic scale. But as a layman, as a citizen, as an expert from different background, we sometimes neglected those understanding or those report. So with this, now we have to understand those from from that holistic approach of understanding those values. So when we talk about agrobiodiversity, as I mentioned in the I mentioned that when we are talking about agrobiodiversity, you are looking about the number of food items you see in your plates, but in fact, it's not the right way. And if you looked at in the Food and Agricultural Organization 1998, give a definition that when you talk about agrobiodiversity, that it is the diversity of genetic resources. When we talk about biodiversity, it is the same definition. It is a variety and variability of this living component, living beings. So in the same way, diversity of genetic resources, that is varieties, breed, species, cultivated area, or well used directly, indirectly for food and agriculture. That is what we are understanding. But if you look into the second column, you will find out the diversity of species that support production, soil biota, pollinators, predators, etc. So we do not understand this particular component because, for example, a vegetarian, sometimes those vegetarians, then when we ask what is agrobiodiversity, their understanding will be the food plate, what you are getting. So likewise, in some area which is dominated by, I'm talking about general layman, when you are dominated by those non-veg community, they will find, okay, these are a variety of that insects that is very nutritious and different kind of, meat, they will talk. But when we talk about this, if we talk about the functional relation, what we are talking about ecosystem services, when we are discussing about ecosystem diversity, ecosystem structure, we understand that there is the functional relation is all always there. We also, in that time, we also discuss about interconnectedness of different structure and component of ecosystem. In the same way, when we talk about agrobiodiversity, we should not forget the value of species which plays an important in giving your that final output. So that's why diversity of species that support production, that is also part of agrobiodiversity. Again, in those in the wider environment, it support ecosystem, agricultural, pastoral, forage, and aquatic, as well as diversity of the ecosystem themselves. Because when we are talking about agriculture, when you see here in the right side, when we are talking about this agricultural field, to make it a productive area, there is different component in this system. They play an important role. Not only the component itself that see small bunt, no, and that margins, small margin, they also play an important role. There are a number of varieties of weeds and grasses over there that play an important role in fixing the nitrogen and others. On the other hand, if you look, for example, if you go to a foothill, or if you go to a mountain region, you will find out the interrelation between your agricultural ecosystem and that of the neighboring system, like pastoral ecosystem, like forest ecosystem. That we need to understand as a sustainable science tools, and we need to understand how it has to be explained to a layman, to a policymaker, which they have some lack of, gap of understanding in that time. We should play an important role in explaining, depending upon to whom we are, talking. So we need to understand this concept of this agrobiodiversity, right? So when we talk about the value of agrobiodiversity, when we are talking about agrobiodiversity, you should not means if you say, instead of using the word, you can also say agricultural diversity. You should not look only those components which you have seen in front of you, only cereals or any of the crop species. There are a lot of things behind that. We have to understand that. So if you look from that technical definition, or whenever we talk about that environment, and there are different components are there. In the same way, when we talk about agrobiodiversity or agricultural ecology or agrodiversity, and two basic components is there. First is the plant agrobiodiversity, that is the diversity of crop and livestock managed by the farmers. This agrobiodiversity, that's agriculture field, this is well engineered by our human, right? And in that, as I know, when we discuss about the input value, when we talk about ecosystem functioning, the input value, we're increasing the input value and also increasing the output value. So the point is that we are well managing the things. Okay. The second associated biodiversity referred to the biotas such as soil microbes and fauna, even weeds, herbivores and carnivores. They play an important role in the ecosystem that survive according to the local management, environment, and conditions. So cropland fields are also included, as well as habitat and species outside of farming systems that benefit agriculture and support ecosystem function. So when we are trying to understand, or when you are explaining, you are understanding the agroecosystem or agrobiodiversity, we should understand these two basic components. First, the first one is what we're talking about, that you have seen only the values that you have seen, okay, this kind of variety of foods that is available in your plates, right? The second component is to produce that varieties of food, means in your plates, there's a number of factors, number of components are also associated. They play an important role behind that scene, which is very basic. Without them, you will not be able to see those variety and variability of foods items in your plate. So we have to understand the basic, the relation, ecosystem functioning relation of these two components, right? So this is the, this definition again in 1999 that says that agrobiodiversity is a subset of biodiversity. And we have no definition of biodiversity. So it includes, as a subset of biodiversity include mixed agroecosystem, crop species varieties, livestock and fish species, plant animal jumplogism, soil organism cultivated areas, biocontrol agent for crop livestock pest, wild species as land ratios or with breeding, cultural and local knowledge of diversity. Say, the last component also you have to understand, because when it is a well managed or well engineered by humanity, by the human, that culture and local knowledge play an important role in increasing or in maintaining the diversity of the agriculture system, right? Because when you look into the history and growth of agrobiodiversity, because when we are coming from that hunter-gatherer to the agricultural society, agricultural civilization, even today also we are entirely depend on those wild species as that we crop it, we cultivated it, and through that way of engineering means increasing the input and increasing them to increase the output, we maintain that. So we have to understand the relations also. Okay, that how you get it, it is what we are getting, that it from our cultural local knowledge of diversity. That's why sometimes we're talking about, for example, if you know any of the value, any value of medicinal plants, so that use not that in a few years back it was not cultivated. Nowadays we are cultivating. Like, here in northern India, we'll find out when I travel across in some part of the state, I've seen that, aloe vera, they're, well cultivated because of, we understand that value. For example, that, this aloe vera, if you go into some places, particularly in this belt of Haryana and Uttarakhand, lower belt, Uttarakhand near Haridwar, they have a mass cultivation of that aloe vera is what we have seen. Few years back, means 20, 30 years back, it must be that they know the value of that medicine value of aloe vera, but it was not cultivated. Okay, it was available in the wild freely. So this is how we have to understand the value. This is how the cultural and local knowledge is and play an important role in maintaining the agrobiodiversity, right? So this is exactly what I asked. We asked this question: do we know the economic value of the agrobiodiversity? Okay. What we know is whatever you are getting from your market, that these vegetables, different varieties of vegetables as economic value. Because if you look into that economic value, we need to understand what kind of valuation we are talking. And we have a little bit concept on that, a little bit. The details you will study in this when we learn that course for an ecological economy. So the anthropocentric and instrumental values quantified by direct and indirect use of and non-use values of biodiversity, plant disease, epidemic, and abiotic stresses, such as the increasing variability of moisture and temperature, underscored the need to ensure against crop failures. Means that when we're trying to understand that the economic value of that, we do not understand what it is here. We do not understand the indirect value. So we need to understand whenever you follow the economic valuation of agriculture, we also need to include those indirect values, maybe use or non-use. Okay. Sorry. When we talk about the direct value, we know the value of crop diversity, that is cultivated species, that has been continuing from the since centuries all, that give us food supply and that gives us nutrition. In that also we have seen we are more focusing on those species which have more nutrition, right? So this is also equally true of subsistence-based society and technology advanced society, right? The point is that even when we value the direct benefit of crop diversity, in that also we value in especially in only few of the main crops or main cultivated species. So in that, when we talk about when we study about ecosystem services, ecosystem function, that we had a brief discussion about ecosystem services. Let us have a quick look into that, because when we have and we know that biodiversity is subset of biodiversity. The ecosystem services given by biodiversity, same services to ecosystem that is also given by the agrobiodiversity. So ecosystem services, we know that it's defined as the condition and process through which natural ecosystem and the species that make them up, sustain, fulfill human life, or as the benefit human population derived directly or indirectly from the ecosystem function. So in this case of ecosystem, means agroecosystem, we will find out one is food, the another is the other values we are getting out of that. Let us see what are those ecological values, whether they can be calculated, those ecological values can be calculated in economic terms, right? So even this welfare economic theory, they assume that an economic valuation can provide useful information about change. That's why whenever we have some value, and that is common consensus, that common understanding, that we sometimes neglected ecosystem service value, because we in 20, 30, 40 years back, the value of that ecosystem services was not calculated in terms of monetary value, means economic value. So now it is a time, that's why since 1980s onward, that after the ecological economics was, evolved, this discipline of economic, that's ecological economic evolved, then it started to calculate the different value of that ecosystem services in terms of economy. So ecosystem, this ecosystem services has been characterized by the outcome of action and interaction of organisms, which we have already talked about. Here, the major focus should be, when we talk about agriculture, here, when we talk about when we talk about agriculture, we have to understand the secondary production of plants and animals used by human, then pollination of crops or biological control of crops. Okay, right. These are the basic ecosystem services given by agriculture. On the other hand, that needs to be understand the concept, the ecosystem service concept. The largely socioeconomic process needs to be understand, because it determines how farmers manage their land and how this affects the deliveries of ecosystem service to farmers and other stockholders in society. So whenever we talk about ecosystem services, we have to understand other processes also, because when we talk about agrobiodiversity or maintaining agroecology, it is not only your system, it is also other processes also play an important role. So 5 main regulating and supporting services to agriculture and farming can be pollination, disease suppression and pest control, nutrient regulation, water regulation and erosion control, as well as soil structuring. So these are the 5 major basic regulation and supporting ecosystem services given by the agriculture, the process of agriculture, or what we can say agrobiodiversity, right? See, here we'll see, when we have a functional agrobiodiversity, you will see pollinator species, they will come. Pollination will happen. Okay? As a regulating service. In the supporting service, soil structuring, okay, soil organic matter, porosity, aggregate stuff, because when we engineer, the human engineer was, we structure the soil, we maintain the soil. So sometimes if you look into the terrace cultivation, others, it's also play an important role in maintaining the soil structure and soil erosion to stop the soil erosion. So these are some of the services. Then you look into regulating services level, as I told you, pollination. Other is that whenever there is increase in your diversity, you will find out disease suppression and pest control. It may be above ground, it may be below ground, right? Then another is nutrient regulation, soil fertility retention. When you engineer yourself, we regulate the nutrient or soil fertility of that particular, system. Okay, then we regulate water regulation and control the erosion of water, right? So that gives a provisioning. How this provisioning services is given crop yield is because of the maintenance of this regulating services, because of the supporting services. This is how function the agrobiodiversity. So to make it happen, the social, that process by the human, this needs to be understood, and that is very important. So when we calculate about ecological value and economic value, we have to calculate that component also. So let us look into pollination. As we know, it is very, well known that when we say about the pollination, bees play an important role. Without bees, we may not get a food. That is what we have to understand that. So globally, if you look in that, the adequate pollination, if we ensure adequate pollination, it could increase yield for a small farmer by a median of 24%, enhancing smallholder livelihoods. That's why, when I travel across this particular 2-3 states in our field work, I have seen that this particular group of people, they have that kind of entrepreneur. They will shift from one place to another, especially in that mustard season, and the other in this September, October. If I'm September, October, November must be. In that time, they will move their beekeeping beekeeping box from one place to another. Now, the reason because of that, there is mutual relation is over there. Because of their beekeeping entrepreneurs, then the surrounding agricultural field, agrobiodiversity will also be maintained on one side. On the other hand, it's also provide that support to these bees. So we have to, the point is that if you want to look that greater production, so pollination, we should understand the value of pollination given by agrobiodiversity from ecological perspective again, and to that economic perspective. Okay. See, some of the basic understanding here is we already knows, as everybody knows, the role of bees is very important. Whenever we look into the gardens, and we usually say that is for aesthetic value. We do not see it as an economic, not much about ecological value of the gardens, parks, even in your city area, even in urban area. But because we look into our aesthetic and social value and health benefit. But if you really look into the variety and the variability that exists in that particular park, then you will see that those gardens, you will see a number of pollinators, right? They play an important role in functioning that ecosystem. So my point is that that also plays an important role in functioning the ecology. So ecological value exists because of the particular diversity in different varieties of flowers, different varieties of plants. So in that way, the bee's contribution is though of more value to vegetable than for blooms, but in reality, that more value that whatever we're getting of food is because of the bees. You have to understand. So that's why decades time 2020 consider the economic value of biodiversity associated. They have done some of the experiment associated with forest fragment adjacent to coffee field in Costa Rica. Very interesting, this particular experiment. India what they have seen, increased quantity and quality of fruits, fewer pea berries from increased pollinator activity was used as the primary ecosystem service of the interest. I will explain. By using pollination experiment, they found that forest-based pollinator increased coffee yield by 20% within 1 kilometer of forest and reduced the frequency of pea berries by up to 27%, that's 11 species. So So the point is, what they did, they did their experiment. So depending on the taking that one parameter distance from the natural forest. So when there is increase in natural forest, there is few species of bird, only few species of bird. So whenever the particular experiment which is near the forest, they have more pollinating species of bees, so that gives more production, right? Not only that, that have least number of disease pests. That means the birds or bees which is visiting in that particularly in that berries farm, they have they do not face any of the insect pest attack or so. So the point is that this particular function of that forest has also important play an important role in the production of that agroecosystem. So we have to understand when we talk about agrobiodiversity, agroecosystem functioning or agroecosystem value, that also directly related to your forest, near forest. Another is soil neutral cycling. You know, the soil biota is the most species rich component of the terrestrial ecosystem. 1 gram of soil alone contains several thousand species of bacteria and other microorganisms. So soil biodiversity was found where the highest biodiversity value estimated Costanza et al. At over $17 billion. See, here we have to understand that the production, the soil fertility, the natural way of soil fertility is because of the diversity of the soil microorganism that is available in the soil. So their contribution can be calculated in terms of economic value. In absence of, for example, how we can do in absence of that particular the microorganism, in a microorganism, your production may be less, will be less, and the presence of that will be high. So in that way, we have to understand the contribution of soil microorganism, not only the ecological contribution. Those ecological contribution can be interpreted in terms of, calculated in terms of economic value, right? Another component is, you know, that is pest predation and parasitism. This is also very important because when we talk about healthy level of biodiversity, it ensures that insect and animal pests are more likely to control by natural enemies. Though we are in the modern world to enhance your, we are putting more input like more fertilizer and more insecticide, pesticide for more output. So in natural way, they are insect, they are pests. But as you know, we know the food chain system that there are other species that can tag those insect pests, which is harmful to the plant. That's also eaten by another. So the value of biodiversity is at the maximum when agricultural system is designed to be sustainable. That's there are some experiment is done by some of the author. So dear Kellerman et al. Consider the economic value of pest control services provided by birds on Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee fields. Here also, what they use an exposure experiment to prevent access to coffee plants by birds and measure the degree of pest infestation on exposed and exposed plant. Okay, non-exposed plant. So they found that infested fruits on coffee plants that remain exposed were 1 to 14% less than those plants where birds were excluded. Thus, the service provided by the avian community resulted in a greater quantity of sellable coffee beans that had an average economic benefit of US dollar 75 per hectare at the time of the study, excluding the additional savings such as the value of the reduced insecticide application. So the biodiversity responsible for providing the pest control service is 17 species of birds. See, this is how, and then we have to understand the value in economy. In a recent study, you will say rice cultivation, rice farming system in India and Orissa, Naik and his team, Naik in 2019, they have conducted this particular the calculator value of ecosystem services by different agroclimatic zones. at that in the state of Odisha. No, these are, they have taken in four representative area, that NCP. I will share this paper also. Now, when you talk about ecosystem services given by the agro ecosystem, we know that food is the first, that byproduct, market value of ecosystem services, biocontrol of pest, soil formation, mineralization of plant nutrients, carbon flow, nitrogen fixation, soil fertility, hydrological flow, soil erosion, non-market value of ecosystem service. So the total economic value of ecosystem services, they calculated. So in food, they calculate 1,040 dollar per hectare per year. That is no from this NCP, North Central Plateau of that area. That is look into this particular region plateau. In the same way, byproduct means, I will explain what are those things. Then here the byproduct in the food, first crop, the value what they are calculated is food is first crop rice, second is crop rice green gram. What byproduct is rice straw. Rice straw also, that you can use, that have that particular, and it's a value, byproduct value. Yeah. Biocontrol of pest, also economic threshold level, they calculate that conversion factor, economic value, and methodology of service. So by taking all these parameters, you will see this is how they calculated the ecosystem services and the value of ecosystem services by the rice cultivation in a different, agroclimatic zone in Odisha, eastern part of Odisha means eastern part of India. So the point is that whenever we're talking about the value of biodiversity here in this case of agricultural system, agrobiodiversity, this not only when we talk about that, we should not looking only the value of those agrobiodiversity, only the food, we should look the other value. So whenever you maintain agrobiodiversity of the place, it not only maintain, or it not only give you the food security, but it's also gives you different ecosystem services, that ecosystem services like soil, the nutrient cycling, even if it also gives us that play an important role in fighting the climate change as well. So today, these are some of the what I'm going to give message to all of you is that through this session is that when we're trying to understand that the value of agrobiodiversity, we have to understand, should understand not only the food value, but also the value of other component of agrobiodiversity. Then only we'll be able to maintain that agrobiodiversity. So maintaining agrobiodiversity means maintaining not only giving you the food security, but also ecological security. So that's all for today. With this, let us have a quick discussion on that.